Now to a story about life and death, crime and punishment.
It's a story of immeasurable loss, but also the unfathomable strength of a father who just lost his son and a mother who made the courageous choice to do the right thing. Karen Swenson explains.
This is the journey of two parents on a path to hope, but one that began as an excruciating trek through darkness. Two strangers grieving the same man.
Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him, you know, and that's what makes me feel good.
Ian was a loving, his smile and his personality.
You loved him?
Yes, I did.
Ian Taylor died in a hail of gunfire last November, but the law enforcement officer didn't die in the line of duty. He died at home after opening his door to a troubled but familiar face.
And when I answered the phone, the girl was screaming in the phone, and she said they shot Ian.
Norman Taylor, Ian's father, a retired longtime NOPD officer whose optimism made news in the 90s when crime was at its worst.
Thank you, dear.
Decades later, was now headed to his own son's murder scene, only to be held back by tape and the arms of former colleagues.
When I found out it was actually him and he was dead, and the coroner's wagon came, and it was hard. It was hard.
Dionne Williams was at Walmart with her kids when she got the news.
She called me on the phone, crying, saying, Dionne, Jabari killed Ian.
Jabari killed Ian. She had to hear it twice. Jabari is Dionne's oldest son. But surprisingly, her initial reaction was not grief.
And I was scared, because I feel like if my son killed my cousin, you know, now, what he gonna come do to me and my kids?
That night, Dionne and her other kids hid at a hotel while Norman planned his revenge.
I'm gonna sit here right now and tell you, if I could have gotten my hands on Jabari that night, I would have snatched the life out of him.
But Jabari was on the run. It was his mother who found him the next day and called police.
How hard was that phone call to make?
It was real hard. I cried. I cried before I did it, and I asked God, was it the right thing to do?
With Jabari now in jail, Norman plotted how to get there too.
I was gonna do something to get arrested, just so they can put me in the cell with him. If they possibly could have put me in the cell with him, I was gonna kill him.
But fate or faith stepped in when Norman's pastor just happened to stop by right then, right there in his living room. Norman had a change of heart for Jabari.
Then I realized, my killing him, or my having hatred in my heart for him, is not gonna solve anything. So instead of hating this kid, I started praying for him.
Norman didn't know Dionne well, as Ian was related to her on Ian's mother's side, and he had no idea about the curse they faced.
Jabari had been in and out of mental hospital since he was 16.
Dionne says Jabari is a diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. She first noticed the symptoms 10 years ago.
It was times when my son would tell me a rat crawled in him and died in his stomach.
She said he dangled her youngest child off the edge of a balcony and accused her of poisoning him.
I watched him like his life was just going down the drain, and I prayed, I just kept hoping that he was gonna get better, but he didn't.
Jabari lived in fear and spread it, especially after he got a gun 2.5 years ago. And if you're wondering how that happened, consider the job he held at the time. He had just been hired as a deputy, a recruit for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office.
While he was on medication for schizophrenia?
Yes.
Did it scare you?
Yes, it did.
And then he was able to get
a gun.
Norman Taylor is a former Orleans Parish deputy himself, having worked there before the NOPD.
My thing is, better screening, come on. How you let a mental patient come to work in a penal institution where you put mental patients?
To be sure, the job didn't last long. Jabari left 6 months later. The sheriff's office said for personal reasons. But
Do you think he kept the gun?
He did.
Jabari is now in the psych unit of Hunt Correctional, awaiting trial.
He not answered. That's him.
He happened to call while we were interviewing his mom.
I don't know. I can check back and see.
You can check back and see, or you gotta go check back and see because like I told
For nearly 9 minutes, Jabari repeats himself, seemingly not comprehending his mom's replies. Dion hopes he's on his meds now. It's likely he wasn't at the time of the shooting. Dion had kept the pills he'd been prescribed 4 days before the murder. 30 had been prescribed, and 30 are still there.
I didn't know initially that he was a mental patient, and that even made me more not want to hate him.
Norman has been fighting crime and hate his whole life.
Get in line, gentlemen, get in line, fix that hat.
He was the officer who back in the 90s, on his own time and dime, created the Making Friends Club, bringing together kids from rival neighborhoods.
They're all gonna be friends, eventually.
Norman has always fought hate with love, and so perhaps it's not surprising he moved far beyond praying for Jabari to forgiving him.
What do you want to have happen to Jabari?
I want him to get help. I want him to get help. I want him to get mental help. I want him to get better. I don't want to see him rot in jail.
Yeah, I didn't think that he was gonna forgive me. Let's know my son, who took his son's life.
This is Ian's hat.
They are two parents on the path to hope.
I know. Oh, that's my baby. That's my baby.
A trek beyond darkness, where their love for both a gentle giant and the cousin who killed him leads to peace. Karen Swenson, Eyewitness News.
The Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office says it currently screens all applicants for mental health, but it did not say whether that policy was in effect when Jabari was hired.
As for Jabari's gun, Jabari's mother says he bought his own gun during the time of his employment with the OPSO. The Sheriff's Office maintains, quote, "The Sheriff's Office does not issue any service weapons to our employees. He never carried a firearm, nor was he authorized to carry a firearm as part of his duties with the OPSO."